Hello, it's week 30 of season 4 of the Andy Griffith Show. This week's episode title is Barney and Thelma Lou. Barney, what's up this week?
Well, Thelma Lou and I are walking by the furniture store display window one night, and we each start talking about what kind of furniture we like. And I start imagining the kind of den that I want to have someday. And I say, I want to have it so it smells of real leather, pipe tobacco, good looks, and maybe a dog. I want to have the place to come back to where I can just put my feet up, light my pipe, where I can just close the door and be in a world of my own. Nobody else. No offense, Thelma Lou, but not even you. And then Thelma Lou says that she'd like a pretty living room one day to entertain her lady friends.
And then both of you all realize that you're kind of jumping the gun a little bit. You're talking like you're ready to get married and buy a house right now. So both of you scale back some and say, these are just ideas for if we ever decide to get married and buy a house someday.
And next day at work, Andy asked me how we liked the movie last night. And I say, well, I tell you, Andy, they're losing me. If Hollywood can't come up with anything closer to reality than that thing we saw last night, then they got the last of my money. And Andy says he liked that movie, and I say Thelma Lou liked it too, but I still didn't. And then Thelma Lou calls. She says she needs a ride to the dentist in Mount Pilot, that our squad car's in the shop. And then Goner comes in and says he can drive her in his pickup truck, so she and I do say okay. And then Andy teases me about my girlfriend spending time alone with another man, and Goner says I can come along if I'm worried. And I say, Goner, there's a lot of things in this world I might be worried about, but losing Thelma Lou is not one of them. I got that little girl right here in my hip pocket.
And Gomer repeats that hip pocket line to Thelma Lou while he's driving her. And then he comes back to the courthouse after they come back from Mount Pilot and says, while they were in Mount Pilot, Thelma Lou took him out to lunch.
And after Goner leaves, Andy says, well, some women go through the shaggy type. Goner's pretty shaggy. And I tell Andy he's got a wart sense of humor. And that night, Thelma Lou stands me up for our usual Tuesday night date. And Andy sees me sitting in the courthouse later, and I say, every Tuesday night for as long as I can remember, Thelma Lou and I are sitting on that couch, a pan of cashew fudge between us, watching that doctor show on TV. And now all of a sudden, it slipped her mind. So I go out on patrol with Andy. Now I got nothing else to do. And we see Thelma Lou going into the movie theater with Goner to see the same movie that I took her to last night. And the next day I tell Andy that this is all his fault for having the idea of having Goner drive Thelma Lou in the first place. And Andy says I should go to Thelma Lou with some flowers. And I say, are you kidding? She ought to come to me with flowers. I'm the stood-up tardy. I didn't go to the movies with Goner. She went to the movies with Goner. And then Goner comes in, and he says, hey, and I ignore him, and I walk out. And Andy asks Goner why he took Thelma Lou to the movies, and Goner says that she asked him. And then Andy finds out that Goner had told her about the hip pocket comment, so Andy sees that she's trying to make me jealous, but I don't know that yet.
And Andy also says, so that the other fellow that Thelma Lou is using to make Barney jealous were to ask her to be his steady, that Thelma Lou would get nervous and go back to Barney right away. And that gives Gomer the idea to call on Thelma Lou that night and ask her to go steady. But she overheard Gomer calling Andy from her house about this plan when Gomer thought that she was in another room and couldn't hear. So she returns Gomer's advances that night to teach him a lesson about using her in his plan.
And I was coming over with flowers. I had decided to take Andy's advice after all. And I see this going on through the window. So I go to Andy's house and I say, it's all come to an end. After all these years, snash. They were hugging and kissing. You couldn't have gotten a piece of tissue paper between them. They were that close. And then Goner comes over. He says something went terrible wrong. Thelma Lou kissed him. And I want to fight him. And Goner says he was raised to marry a woman if she kisses him like that. So Andy gets us all together, and he straightens everything out between us all. And then Thelma Lou says, Barney, just don't ever say that you got me in your hip pocket again. And the next day I tell Andy, well, the big issue has been settled. As of last night, there's going to be no more trouble like we just went through. From now on, Tuesday night is an unbreakable date, and neither party can cancel without giving the other 3 days' notice.
And Andy says, oh, I thought you meant the big issue of marriage. And you say, no, no big rush on that. And then you repeat the hip pocket comment that got you into trouble in the first place. We'll see you next week for episode 31.